So, hindi ganun natin kalalim i-discuss. Ano? So, mahalaga lang magkaroon tayo ng background about dito sa mga iba't ibang laws. Not necessary din naman na ito ay i-memorize kung ano yung mga content. Hindi naman kayo mga mag-aabogado. Ano, so somehow, so kailangan lang natin mapamiliarize with these different laws. Ano? So kung titingnan natin, so meron siyang, dito maganda na yung pagkakalatag, ano, kasi dinivide-divide na yung mga different laws according to sectors. So meron dyan for social work, for welfare admin, senior citizen, elderly, PWD, IP, laws for the poor, for the family, for women, children and youth, for climate change, special sectors with special concerns, mga laws related to crimes, laws for service provision, and laws related to housing settlements. Ayan. So ready na po ba ang bawat isa to know these laws? So ngayon, so madami-dami. So yung iba dito na encounter na natin during sa SWPPS natin sa policies, ano. So siguro more on i-recall na lang natin yung iba dito. And then bukas siguro introduce natin yung ibang mga laws, especially yung mga latest laws na inaprubahan ngayong taong ito hanggang nung mga nakaraang taon pa. Ano? So yun yung i-discuss natin bukas. Kasi minsan may mga lumalabas din na mga latest na law na nakaka-approve lang. And yun, so ang malungkot lang dito, so hindi naman lahat ito ay napapasama sa dami ng mga batas. Ano? So during our time, parang 3 hanggang 5 lang yung lumabas na mga batas. Ano? And basic pa yung mga lumabas, pero good thing na rin yung merong VAWC, merong Magna Carta of Women, meron ding yung sa anti-sexual harassment, yung mga yun, yung common lumabas. For 373, meron din, saka yung 5416. Yan. Sige. So, tingnan natin. So, again, so no need to memorize this, ano, pero kailangan lang natin mapamiliarize with this, ano. So, siguro kung may mga tatandaan, ilang mga keywords, pero not necessarily na i-memorize natin siya kasi napakadami po nila. Okay. So, unahin po natin yung laws pertaining to social work practice. Ano po? So, mahalaga na unang-una, familiar tayo with our social work law. The RA 4373. Ano? So, sino nga yung author ng ating RA 4373? Kilala niyo ba? Yung social work senator. Anong pangalan niya? The author of the RA 4373. Lumabas yata ito last time sa board exam. Social work senator. Social worker na senator pa. Meron bang may alam sa inyo? Anyone? Meron ba? Mukhang walang may alam Nasaan pa ba kayo?
Opo,
Hello?
sir.
Okay. So, sino yung author? Meron ba may alam o hindi pa? Hindi pamilyar? Wala.
Hindi
Wala ba?
pamilyar.
Sino daw?
Matanda na ako siguro yan. Baka siya. Babae ba, sir?
Babae. Oo.
Baka si Shahani, sir.
Okay. Sige. So, ang author po ng ating social work law ay si Maria Calao Katibak. Okay, tandaan niyo yan. Si Maria Calao Katibak. Ano, so siya ay isang social worker, senator, ano, and na-approve ang social work law noong June 19, 1965. Ano po? So again, si Maria Calao Katibak. Okay? So this is itong social work law natin, so this is an act regulate the practice of social work and social work agencies in the Philippines. So define social work agency and qualifications for Board of Social Work, term of office, registration of social work agencies, and disqualification of social workers. So kung titingnan natin yung RA 4373, nakapaloob doon yung definition ng social work, ano yung social work agency. Nakalagay din doon yung ano yung qualification ng mga board of examiner, paano makakapag-board exam ang isang social work student, ano din yung mga requirements, ayan, and etc. Okay? And then yung 4373, nagkaroon siya ng amendment, which is the 5175. So dito sa 5175, inapprove sa last August 4, 1967. So ang sinasabi naman ng 5175, so nabago yung qualification ng Board of Examiner. So instead ng bachelor lang, so kailangan meron na silang mga masteral. Okay, so meron ng masteral degree. So MSSW. Okay? And then another, nagkaroon po ulit ng amendment 10847. So approved on May 23, 2016. So dito naman pinayagan na na at least 18 years old ay makapag-take na ng board exam. So kasi dati, ang pinapayagan lang na pwede makapag-take ng board exam ay 21 years old. Okay? So this is an act lowering the age requirement for applicants taking the board examination for social workers, providing for continuing social work education and upgrading the sundry provisions relative to the practice of social work. So another important law, RA 9433. So parang ito ay lumabas din yata na nakaraan. So ang sa amin nung time ko, 4373 ang lumabas. So ito parang 9433 lumabas din. So the Magna Carta for Public Social Workers. Okay, so that was approved on November 7, 2007. So dito sa Magna Carta for Public Social Workers, yung nilalaman lang nito, so ano ba yung mga benefits na dapat matanggap ng mga public social workers and ano yung mga rights nila as a public social worker. So on-call status refers to conditions where public social workers are called upon to respond to an urgent or crisis situation or immediate need or relief of work during emergencies such that they cannot devote the time for their own use. Okay? So, basta pagdating sa Magna Carta of Social Worker, so it talks about the rights, nandiyan din yung mga compensation, ilang oras dapat ang i-duty ng isang social worker na nagwo-work under the public or under the government. Okay? So, yan po yung about sa ating social work practice. Ano po? Mga related laws. For welfare administration naman, we have 5416. This is the Social Welfare Act of 1968. Approved last June 15, 1968. So, yung act na ito ang nagre-create ng Department of Social Welfare and Development. So created a Department of Social Welfare, hereafter referred to as Department. Secretary and 2 undersecretaries should be appointed by the President. Ayan. So ito rin yung nagsasabi ng itong batas na ito, na ang Secretary ng DSWD and undersecretaries ay appointed dapat ng Presidente. Undersecretary should be master's degree and 5 euros. So kailangan daw may 5 euros din ang Department of Social Welfare. We have the family, the child and youth, vocational rehabilitation, the field services, training research, and special projects. The special projects would include the Central Institute for Training and the location of urban squatters, disaster, and emergency relief services. Okay. So another law, 7160. So ito yung Local Government Code of 1991, passed on October 10, 1991. So ito yung pagkakaroon ng devolution ng kung ilalapat natin sa DSWD, yung pagkakaroon ng devolution, kaya nagkaroon tayo ng mga Municipal Social Welfare and Development Officer. So, kumbaga, nandyan yung decentralization, yung ibang functions and responsibilities, ibinaba na on the local government unit. So, nagkaroon ng creation and conversion of LGU based on income, population, and land area. Ayan, so hindi ko lang siya makita. Wait lang. Wait lang ng konti. Ayan. Okay. So, ang effectivity date ng local government code is on January 1, 1992. So, naming of LGUs, public places, and streets in consultation with the Philippine Historical Commission. And then change of name, not less than 10 years. So, qualifications for local officials, governor and vice governor, kailangan daw at least 23 years old. For mayor and vice mayor, 21 years old. For sangguniang panglungsod, 18 years old. And term of office is 2 years, not more than 3 consecutive terms. Ayan. So, kung ilalapat lang naman natin sa ating social welfare and social services, so ang sinasabi lang ni local government code ay yung about doon sa devolution of services, kung saan yung ibang services from the national government ay ibababa na on the local government. Okay? Then we have the EO15, redirecting the functions and operations of the DSWD, signed on August 20, 1998. DSWD has been transformed from a direct service deliverer to a technical assistance provider as a result of the devolution of basic services to the local government units. Okay? So yan po yung about sa welfare administration. So next po, senior citizen, elderly. So we have 7432, the Senior Citizens Act, approved on April 23, 1992. So ito yung an act maximizing the contribution of senior citizens to nation building. So dito dinefine kung ano ba yung senior citizens. So at least 60 years old, including those who have retired from both government offices and private enterprises and has an income of not more than 60,000 pesos per annum, subject to review by the National Economic and Development Authority or NEDA every 3 years. Ano po? So dito kasi dinefine nila yung senior citizen, so based on the annual income, kasi nga ito yung magiging basis natin for the beneficiaries of social pension. So dito binigyan din ng definition yung benefactor shall mean any first person, whether related to senior citizens or not, who takes care of him her as a dependent. Kasi nga pag may mga benefactor, may mga tumutulong naman dun sa matanda o senior citizen, so maaaring hindi na sila maging priority for the social pension. The term head of the family shall mean any person so defined in the National Internal Revenue Code. Okay? So dito, so since ang sinasabi ay contribution ng senior citizens to nation building, so inisa-isa din dito yung mga contribution to the community. Any qualified senior citizen as determined by the office or the OSCA, so yung OSCA, yung itinatalagang offices on the local government unit, kung saan ito yung magiging sentro ng opisina ng mga senior citizens. So they may render his service to the community which shall consist of but not limited to any of the following. So letter A, tutorial or consultancy services. Actual teaching and demonstration of hobbies and income generating skills. Lectures on specialized fields like agriculture, health, environmental protection, and the like. The transfer of new skills acquired by virtue of training mentioned in Section 4, Paragraph D. And then letter E, undertaking other appropriate services as determined by the OSCA, such as school traffic guide, tourist aid, preschool assistant, and etc. In consideration of the services rendered by the qualified elderly, the OSCA may award or grant benefits or privileges to elderly in addition to the other privileges provided for under Section 4 hereof. Yan. So ito yung mga privileges naman ng mga senior citizens. So we are familiar naman, meron silang 20% discounts sa mga establishment pagdating sa transportation, sa hotel, mga lodging, establishment, restaurant, recreation areas, and others. Okay? Provided that private establishment may claim the cost as tax credit. Ayan, so 20% discount din sa mga theaters, cinema, houses, concert halls, circuses, carnivals, and other leisure or similar places of culture and amusement. So another privileges, exemption from the payment of individual income taxes, provided that their annual taxable income does not exceed the property level as determined by the NEDA for that year. Exemption din for sa mga training fees, so walang bayad for socio-economic programs undertaken by the OSCA as part of its work. Pre-medical and dental services sa mga government establishment anywhere in the country, subject sa guidelines na issue ng DOH, GSIS, and SSS. To the extent practicable and feasible, the continuance of the same benefits and privileges given by the GSIS, SSS, Pag-ibig, as the case may be, as are enjoyed by those in actual service. Ayan. So, yun po yung mga ilang privileges ng mga senior citizen. Pagdating naman sa government assistance, the seniors shall be treated as dependents provided by the National Internal Revenue Code. So, they consider as dependents, individual taxpayers caring for them, relatives or not shall be accorded the privileges granted by the code insofar as having dependents are concerned. Individuals or non-governmental institutions establishing homes, residential communities, or retirement villages solely for the senior citizens shall be accorded the following. Realty tax holiday for the first 5 years starting from the first year of operation. So, ayan. So, and then priority in building or maintenance of provincial or municipal roads leading to the aforesaid home residential community or retirement village. So ito yung mga nagkikater ng mga matatanda, mga senior citizens. So they are accorded dito sa mga taxes, and then priority rin na magawa ng mga municipal roads going to the facility. Retirement benefits. To the extent practicable and feasible, retirement benefits from the government and private sectors should be upgraded to be at par with the current scale enjoyed by those in actual service. Ayan. So OSCA, minamandato rin na ang bawat munisipyo ay magkaroon ng OSCA. And they are headed by a councilor who shall be designated by the Sangguniang Bayan and assisted by the Community Development Officer in coordination with the Department of Social Welfare and Development. So ano ba yung functions ng OSCA? So to plan, implement, and monitor yearly work programs in pursuance of the objective of this act. To draw up a list of available and required services which can be provided by senior citizens. To maintain the regularly updating on a quarterly basis the list of senior citizens and to issue nationally uniform individual identification cards which shall be valid anywhere in the country. So, nagpro-provide ng mga senior citizen ID, ay doon sa OSCA building or sa OSCA office. To serve as a general information and liaison center to serve the needs of the senior citizen. Okay? So, that's for RA 74332 or the senior citizens. Yan. And from that law, nagkaroon siya ng amendment, RA 9257 naman. The Expanded Senior Citizens Act of 2003 that was approved on February 26, 2004. Okay? So, sige pa. So, an act granting additional benefits and privileges to senior citizens. So, under Section 1, Declaration of Policies and Objectives, pursuant to Article 15, Section 4 of the Constitution, it is the duty of the family to take care of its elderly members, while the state may design programs of social security for them. In addition to this, Section 10 in the Declaration of Principles and State Policies provides, the state shall provide social justice in all phases of national development. Further, in Article number 13, Section 11 provides, the state shall adopt an integrated and comprehensive approach to health and social services available to all the people at affordable cost. There should be priority for the needs of underprivileged, sick, elderly, disabled women, and children. Yan. So for the definition of terms, so binigyan nila dito ng definition, what is geriatrics? So this is a branch of medical science devoted to the study of biological and physical changes and the diseases of old age. So when we say geriatrics, it pertains to the matatanda sa mga old age. So this pertains to the study of the biological and physical changes na nangyayari dun sa mga nakakatanda. Okay? So with this law, binigyan ng other privileges pa yung mga senior citizens. So yung pagkakaroon ng pre-medical and dental service, diagnostic and laboratory fees such as but not limited to X-ray, computerized tomography, scans, blood tests, in all government facilities subjects to the guideline issued by the DOH, syempre in coordination siya with the PhilHealth. So 20% discount din sa mga medical and dental services, diagnostic and laboratory fees. Under Section 4, including professional fees of attending doctors in all private and medical facilities in accordance with the rules regulation to be issued by DOH and still for coordination din sa PhilHealth. 20% sa mga domestic air and sea travel. Meron din 20% discount sa mga public railways, skyways, bus fare, and then education and assistance to senior citizens to pursue post-secondary, tertiary, and post-tertiary, as well as vocational or technical education in public, private schools through provision of scholarship. So kahit mga senior, entitled pa rin sila sa mga scholarship. Ayan. So another privileges, financial aid subsidies and other incentives to qualified senior citizens, including support for books, learning materials, and uniform allowance to the extent feasible, provided that senior citizens should meet the minimum admission requirement. And then to the extent practicable and feasible, the continuance of the same benefits of privileges given by the GSIS, SSS, Pag-ibig, as the case may be, are enjoyed by those in actual service. So yan, mga retirement benefits din of retirees from the government and private sector. So kailangan daw regularly reviewed to ensure their continuing responsiveness and sustainability. And the government may grant special discounts and special programs for senior citizens on the purchase of basic commodities. So may mga discount din on the basic commodities under pa rin ang guidelines ng DTI and DA. Provision of express lanes. Ayan, so nagagawa naman ito yung mga express lanes for senior citizens for commercial and government establishment. Okay. And in the availment of the privileges mentioned above, the senior citizen or older person may submit as a proof of his or her entitlement thereto any of the following. So kailangan meron siyang ID from the LGU, issued by the city or municipal mayor or barangay captain of the place where the senior citizens resides. A passport of elderly person or senior citizen concerned. The other documents that establish that senior citizens or elderly person is a citizen of the Republic and is at least 60 years old. The establishment may claim the discounts granted under A, F, G, and H as tax deduction based on the net cost of goods sold or service rendered, provided that the cost of discount should be allowed as a deduction from gross income for the same taxable year that the discount is granted. Provided further that the total amount of claim tax deduction net of value-added tax, if applicable, shall be included in the gross sales receipts for the tax purposes and shall be subject for proper documentation and to the provision of the National Internal Revenue Code. And so nakabase pa rin on the tax na natatanggap ng isang senior na binabayaran ng isang senior citizens. Government assistance, the government shall provide the following: employment. So nandyan niya yung anti-discrimination natin for the senior citizen that they are allowed pa rin to work. So they have the capacity and desire to work or to be re-employed, shall be provided information and matching services to enable them to be productive members of the society. Terms of employment should conform with the provision of the Labor Code as amended, other laws, rules, and regulations. Private entities that will employ senior citizens as employees upon effectivity of this act should be entitled to an additional deduction from their gross income, equivalent to 15% of the total amount paid as salaries and wages to senior citizens, subject to the provision of Section 34 of the National Internal Revenue. As amended, provided, however, that such employment shall continue for a period of at least 6 months, provided further that the annual income of the senior citizen does not exceed the poverty level as determined by the NEDA for that year. So, ang DOLE, in coordination with the government agency, but not limited to Technology and Livelihood Resource Center, and DTI shall assess, design, and implement training programs that will provide skills and welfare or livelihood support for senior citizens. So that's for employment. Sa education naman, with the help of DepEd, DSWD, and NGO, and other people organization, so the senior citizen shall institute a program that will ensure access to formal and non-formal education. So, nandun pa rin, pinapayagan pa rin mga senior citizen to continue learning. Ayan. So, sa health naman, so in coordination with the DOH, LGU, NGO, POs, so kailangan daw nagkaroon ng National Health Program and shall provide an integrated health services for senior citizen. Okay? Pagdating naman sa social services, so pangunguna naman ng DSWD in cooperation ng OSCA and LGU and non-government and people's organization, kailangan daw may implement yung mga sumusunod na mga services. Self and social enhancement services which provide senior citizens opportunity for socializing, creative expression, and improvement of self. So number 2, aftercare and follow-up services. So which provides senior citizens who are discharged from home institution for the aged, especially those who have problems of reintegration with the family and community wherein both the senior citizens and their families are provided with counseling. So nandyan din under sa social services, neighborhood support services, yung pagkakaroon ng mga substitute family care in the form of residential care or group homes for abandoned, neglected, unattached, or homeless senior citizen and those incapable of self-care. So the grant of at least 50% discount for the consumption of electricity, water, telephone by senior citizens, center, and residential care groups homes that are non-stock, non-profit, domestic corporation organized and operated exclusively for the purpose of promoting of well-being of abandoned, neglected, unattached, and homeless senior citizen. So yung mga nag-ooperate na mga home for the aged, so they are pwede sila maka-avail ng mga 50% discount pagdating sa mga bayarin sa telepono, sa electricity, and water. So, pagdating naman sa housing, the national government should include in its national shelter program the special housing needs ng mga senior citizens, such as establishment of housing units for the elderly. Pagdating sa access sa public transportation, so kailangan daw may mga program to assist senior citizens to fully gain access in the use of public transportation facilities. Okay? Yung sa expanded senior citizens Act 2003. Right. So nabanggit na rin naman kanina sa OSCA, So kailangan yung OSCA president ay appointed by the mayor at meron siyang 3 years, 3 years term. Without reappointment from a list of 3 nominees of the Sangguniang Panglungsod o Sangguniang Bayan. So si OSCA head, yung mag-a-assist sa CSWDO or the MSWDO in coordination with the Social Welfare and Development Office. Ayan. And then the Office of the Senior Citizens Affairs should have the following function. So sila yung mag-monitor ng compliance ng provision of this act, particularly yung mga special discounts and privileges ng senior citizen. So, i-report kay Mayor yung mga establishment na magbabiolate doon sa hindi pagsunod sa mga pagbibigay ng discounts and privileges sa mga senior citizen. And the OSCA will the one who assists the senior citizens in filing complaints or charges against any establishment, institution, or agency refusing to comply with the privileges under this act before the Department of Justice or provincial or city or municipal trial court. And then, nagkaroon po ulit ng amendment, yung RA 9994 or the Expanded Senior Citizen Act of 2010. So ito naman ay na-approve last February 15, 2010. So ito yung mga naging amendments. Lodging establishment refers to a building, edifice, structure, apartment, or house including tourist inn, apartment, motorist hotel, pension house engaged in catering, leasing, or providing facilities to transient tourists or travelers. So, kumbaga, sakop na ito ng mga discount and privileges na natatanggap ng senior citizen. Pagdating naman sa medical services, this includes the hospital services, professional services of physician, and other care health professional, diagnostic lab tests that the necessary for diagnosis or treatment of an illness or injury. Dental services, including oral exam, cleaning, permanent and temporary filing, extraction and gum treatments, restoration, replacement, or repositioning of teeth or alteration of the alveolar or periodontium process of the maxilla and the mandible that are necessary for the diagnosis of treatment of an illness or injury. Letter D, nearest surviving relatives refers to the legal spouse who survives the deceased senior citizen. Provided that where no spouse survives the descendant, this shall be limited to relatives in the following order of degree of kinship: the children, the parents, siblings, grandparents, grandchildren, uncles, and aunts. Home healthcare services refers to health or supportive care provided to the senior citizen patient at home by licensed healthcare professional to include but not limited to physicians, nurses, midwives, physical therapists, and caregivers. So indigent senior citizens, ito daw ay kasama yung mga frail, sickly, mga disabled, yung mga walang pensyon, walang permanent source of income, and they are receiving financial assistance from their relatives to support yung kanilang basic needs. This is determined by the Department of Social Welfare and Development with the National Coordinating and Monitoring Board. So sa Section 4, the death benefit assistance. So a minimum of 2,000 shall be given to the nearest surviving relative of the senior citizen, which amount shall be subject for adjustment due to inflation in accordance with the guidelines to be issued by the DSWD. So automatic, so merong death benefit assistance na 2,000 pesos, pero subject for increase depende sa inflation ng panahon. Ayan. For poster care naman, incentive for poster care, the government shall provide incentive to individual or non-governmental institution caring for establishing homes, residential communities, or retirement villages solely for senior citizens. So ito naman yung mga agencies and institutions na nag-o-offer ng care for the senior citizen. So, exempted sila or magkakaroon sila ng real tax holiday for the first 5 years sa pag-start ng kanilang operation. Priority list sila sa pag-construction o pag-maintain ng mga municipal roads or provincial roads na malapit doon sa kanilang residential facility. And then, social government assistance, social pension. So, 500 ang binibigay natin monthly. This is a form of money to augment yung kanilang daily subsistence and medical needs ng mga senior citizen. So, yung mga kasali dito is subject for review every 2 years by the Congress in consultation with the DSWD. So, ang pagbibigay natin ngayon ng social pension is quarterly. So, kaya ang nare-receive quarterly ng mga senior citizen natin is 1,500. So, meron ding mandatory PhilHealth coverage, ang ating mga senior citizen, yung mga indigent senior citizens natin. And we have the social safety nets, social safety assistance intended to cushion the effects of economic shocks, disasters, and calamity shall be available for senior citizen. The social safety assistance which shall include but limited to food, medicines, and financial assistance for domicile repair shall be sourced from the disaster calamity funds of LGUs where the senior citizens reside, subject to the guidelines to be issued by the DSWD. So yung OSCA, almost naulit lang din naman. So kailangan headed siya ng senior citizen with a term of 3 years. Without reappointment but without prejudice to an extension of exigency so requires. So the said appointees shall be chosen from list of 3 nominees as recommended by General Assembly of Senior Citizens Organization in the city or municipality. The head of the OSCA shall be appointed to serve the interests of senior citizen and shall not be removed, replaced except for reasons of death, permanent disability, or ineffective performance of his duties to the detriment of fellow senior citizens. The head of OSCA should be entitled to receive, so meron silang honorarium, at least equivalent to salary grade 10 to be approved by the LGU concerned. The head of the OSCA should be assisted by the CSWD or the MSWD in coordination with the Social Welfare and Development Office. So the Office of the Mayor shall exercise supervision over the OSCA relative to their plans, activities, programs for senior citizens. The OSCA shall work together and establish linkages with accredited NGOs, POs, and barangays in their respective areas. Okay, so another amendment. So 10645, November 5, 2014. Ito yung an act providing the mandatory PhilHealth coverage for senior citizens. So sinasabi dito na lahat ng senior citizens should be covered by the PhilHealth. Okay? So funds necessary to ensure the enrollment of all senior citizens not currently covered by existing categories shall be sourced from the National Health Insurance Fund of PhilHealth from proceeds of the Republic Act number 10351 in accordance with the pertinent laws and regulation. Next, 7876 Senior Citizen Center Act of the Philippines on February 19, 1995. So an act establishing senior citizens center in all cities, municipalities. So the functions of the centers. So identify the needs, trainings, and opportunities of senior citizens in the cities and municipalities. San Robles Virtual Law Library. Initiate, develop, and implement productive activities and work schemes for senior citizens in order to provide income or otherwise supplement their earnings in the local community. Promote and maintain linkages with the provincial government units and other instrumentalities of government and the city and municipal councils for the elderly and the Federation of Senior Citizens Association of the Philippines and other government or non-government organization for the delivery of healthcare services, facilities, professional advice services, volunteer training, and community health project. To exercise such functions which are necessary to carry out the purpose which the centers are established. Section 6, Center Workers. The Secretary of DSWD may designate social workers from the department as the workers of the centers. So, yung mga sa mga center, so si DSWD, yung pipili, si Secretary, para mag-designate ng mga social worker on the centers. Provided, however, that the Secretary may appoint other personnel who possess the necessary professional qualification to work efficiently with the elderly of the community. Okay. So the Secretary may also call upon private volunteers who are responsible members of the community to provide medical, educational, and other services and facilities for the senior citizens. So qualifications and disqualification: a senior citizen who suffers from contagious disease, mentally unfit or unsound, or whose actuations are inimical to other senior citizens as determined by the DSWD on the basis of an appropriate certification by qualified government or private voluntary physician, may be denied the benefits provided in the center. However, the center shall refer the senior citizen concerned to the appropriate government agency for the needed medical care or confinement. And Section 8, exemptions of the center. The center shall be exempted for the payment of customs, duties, taxes, tariffs on the importation of equipment and supplies used actually, directly, and exclusively by the center pursuant this act, including those donated to the center. So ito yung mga exemptions from customs duties, taxes, and tariffs. We have the MIPA, Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging. So that was held on April 8 to 12, 2002. So the Madrid Plan of Action offers a bold new agenda for handling age of aging in the 21st century. It focuses on 3 areas: older persons and development, advancing health and well-being into old age, and ensuring enabling and supportive environment. It is a resource for policy making, suggesting ways for government, NGO, and other actors to reorient the ways in which their societies perceive, interact, and care for their old citizens. And it represents the first time governments agreed to link questions of aging to other framework for social and economic development and human rights. Most notably, those agreed at the United Nations conferences and summits of the past decade. So the Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging and Political Declaration adopted by the Second World Assembly on Aging in 2002 mark a turning point in how the world addresses the key challenge of building a society for all ages. Okay, so that's the Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging. Right. So next we have the laws for PWD. So we have the 7277. So ang palatandaan ko dito yung 77. 7277. Yung 77 para sang saklay. So it pertains to PWD. So the Magna Carta for disabled person. So during the time na meron daw board examiner na PWD, madami daw lumabas about the laws pertaining to person with disability. Pero sa ngayon wala namang board of examiner na mayroong kapansanan. Ayan. So the Magna Carta for disabled person that was approved on March 24, 1992. So this is an act providing the rehabilitation, self-development, self-reliance of disabled person and their integration into the mainstream society. Disabled person, so ito yung mga definition of terms. Those are suffering from restriction of different disabilities as a result of mental, physical, or sensory impairment to perform an activity in the manner of within the range considered normal for a human being. Impairment naman is any loss, diminution, or aberration of psychological, physiological, or anatomical structure of function. Disability, so shall mean one, a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more psychological, physiological, or anatomical function of an individual or activities of such individual, or a record of such an impairment, or being regarded as having such an impairment. Okay? Pag sinabi natin namang handicap, ayan. So this is a disadvantage for a given individual resulting from an impairment or a disability that limits or prevents the functions activity that is considered normal given the age and sex of the individual. So RA 9442, so ito naman yung nagbibigay ng at least 20% discount sa pag-purchase nila ng mga bilihin. So that was approved last April 30, 2007. Another, we have RA 10070, yung PWD Affairs Office or yung mas kilala sa tawag na PDAW. Okay? So this is an act establishing institutional mechanism to ensure the implementation of programs and services for PWD in every province, city, and municipality. Local government units shall promote the establishment of organization of persons with PWD in their respective territorial jurisdictions. So ito yung law na nagsasabi na kailangan may organization ng PWD, merong officer, at yun nga yung tinatawag nating PDAW. BP 344, so ito yung sinasabi nating accessibility law, the law to enhance mobility of disabled person. So nire-require yung mga certain buildings, private ba yan, government or institutions or any establishment na meron dapat access yung mga PWD natin. So merong mga rampa, may side rails, and etc. Okay? So the VAWC Millennium Framework for Action, ito ay ginawa naman noong October 25 to 28. This promote an inclusive, barrier-free, and right-based society for people with disability in the Asian and Pacific region in the 21st century. So 9288, so Newborn Screening Act of 2004. So kailangan yung bawat baby na pinanganak ay mapa-newborn screening. And ideally, ginagawa sa 48 to 72 hours of life ng bata. So para ma-detect kung meron bang mga defect yung bata. So however, it may also be done after 20 hours from birth. Okay? United Convention on the Rights of PWD or the UNCRPD. So entered into force on May 3, 2008. It takes a new height, the movement from viewing person disability as subject of charity, medical treatment, and social protection towards viewing person with disability as subject with rights who are capable of claiming those rights, making decisions for their lives based on their free and informed consent as well as being active members of society. So dito naman tinama lang sa UN Convention on UNCRPD, tinama lang na ang mga PWD ay hindi objects of charity. Kumbaga, hindi sila object na tagatanggap lamang ng tulong. So, itinama sa as subject with rights, na karapatan nilang i-claim yung mga rights nila as a PWD. So we also have the Universal Newborn Hearing Screening and Intervention Act of 2009 or the RA 9709. This is an act establishing a universal newborn hearing screening for the prevention, early diagnosis, and intervention of hearing loss. So meron tayo tinatawag na Universal Newborn Hearing Screening Program to institutionalize measure for the prevention and early diagnosis of congenital hearing loss among newborns. The provision of referral, follow-up, recall, and early intervention services to infants with hearing loss, and counseling and other support services for families of newborn with hearing loss to afford them all opportunities to be productive members of the community. Okay. Then we have EO 709, defining the functions and organizational structure of the National Council for the Welfare of Disabled Person, renamed as the National Council on Disability Affairs and attached to the Office of the President. Ayan. So itong council na ito ay attached na with the Philippine President. So this is signed on February 26, 2008. The functions and organizational structure of the National Council for the Disabled Person, which are the name as NCDA, or the National Council on Disability Affairs, which shall be attached to the Office of the President. Okay. So next, another important sector ay ang mga Indigenous people, the IPs. So we have the 7942, the Philippine Mining Act of 1995. Since we are protecting the ancestral land ng ating mga IPs, kaya we have this law na magpoprotekta para hindi galawin yung mga ancestral land ng ating mga Indigenous people. This was approved on March 3, 1995. So this is an act instituting a new system of mineral resources exploration, development, and utilization and conservation. So pag sinabi natin ancestral lands, refer to all lands exclusively and actually possessed, occupied, or utilized by the Indigenous cultural communities, by themselves or through their ancestors in accordance with their customs and traditions since time immemorial and as may be defined and designated by law. So ancestral lands, maybe ito ay from their ancestors o bigay sa kanila or grant sa kanila ng government. Ano po? Na hindi pwedeng galawin ng sinuman kasi nga tinuturing na ito ay talagang pag-aari na ng mga IPs. And then letter B, black or meridional black. So ano bang ibig sabihin nun? Means an area bounded by 1/2 minute of latitude and 1/2 minute of longitude containing approximately 81 hectares. Exclusive economic zone means the water, sea, bottom, and subsurface measure from the baseline of the Philippine archipelago up to 200 nautical miles or offshore. And then the foreign-owned corporation means any corporation, partnerships, association, or cooperatives duly registered in accordance with the law in which less than 50 centum of the capital is owned by Filipino citizen. Okay? And then we have RA 371 or mas kilala sa IPRA law. So the Indigenous People Rights Act of 1997 approved on October 29, 1997. So this is an act to recognize, protect, and promote the rights of IPs, creating a NCIP, and then establishing implementing mechanism. So all matters about Indigenous people ang nagde-decide niyan ay ang NCIP or the National Commission of Indigenous People. So pag sinabi daw subject ancestral domains, so refer to all areas generally belonging to Indigenous cultural communities or Indigenous people, comprising lands, island waters, coastal areas, natural resources therein, held under a claim of ownership or occupied or possessed by ICCs or IPs by themselves or through their ancestor, communally or individually since time of immemorial, continuously to the present except when interrupted by war, force majeure or displacement by force, deceit, stealth, or a consequence of government project or any voluntary dealings entered into by government and private individuals, corporation, which are necessary to ensure their economic, social, and cultural welfare. So they include ancestral land, forest, pasture, residential, agricultural, and other lands individually owned, whether alienable and disposable or otherwise hunting grounds, burial grounds, worship areas, bodies of water, mineral, and other natural resources and land, which may no longer be exclusively occupied by ICCs or IPs, but from which they traditionally had access to their subsistence and traditional activities, particularly the home ranges of ICC and IPs who are still nomadic and or shifting cultivators. So pagdating naman sa IPRA law, so ang isa lang din talagang pinaglalaban ng mga IPs natin ay yung kanilang karapatan on their ancestral land. So kaya dapat talagang sila ingat na ingat with this ancestral lands. Kaya kahit yung law natin on mining, so hindi siya pwede basta-basta pasundin. Okay? Next, we have laws for the poor. Ayan. So we have 8425 or the Social Reform and Poverty Alleviation Act. Okay? So this is an act institutionalizing social reform and poverty alleviation program, creating the NAPC, or the National Anti-Poverty Commission, defining its powers and functions. So under Section 4, nagkaroon ng definition, social dimension, access to quality basic services. So ito yun daw ay pumapatungkol sa mga reforms which refer to equitable control and access to social services and facilities such as education, health, housing, and other basic services which enable the citizens to meet their basic human needs and to live decent lives. Then we have economic dimension, asset, reform, and access to economic opportunities. So number 3, we have ecological dimension, sustainable development of productive resources. And lastly, we have governance dimension, democratizing the decision-making and management processes. The Social Reform Alleviation Act shall focus on the following sector-specific flagship programs. So ito yung mga tinutukan nila, the farmers and the landless rural workers, the fisher folk, IPs and ICCs, workers in the informal sector, the urban poor, yung mga disadvantaged group, the women, the children, the youth, the PWD, elderly, mga biktima ng natural and man-made calamities, and the comprehensive integrated delivery of social services. So we have 8759, the Public Employment Service Office Act of 1999, approved last February 14, 2000. This is an act institutionalizing a national facilitation service network through the establishment of a public employment service in every province, key city, and other strategic areas throughout the country. So mandatory na magkaroon daw ng mga public employment service or the PESO office. So under Section 3, to carry out the above declared policy, there should be established all capital towns of province, key cities, and other strategic areas of PESO, herein referred as PESO, which should be community-based and maintained largely by the local government unit and number of NGO, CVOs, and state universities and colleges. The PESO should be linked to the regional office of the DOLE for the coordination and technical supervision, and the DOLE Central Office to constitute the National Employment Service Network. So ano ba yung mga services na ino-offer ng PESO? We have job fairs, livelihood and self-employment bazaars, special credit assistance to place overseas workers. We have the SPESOs, special program for employment of students and out of school youth. So ito yung mas kilala natin sa SPES, so during mga summer seasons or vacation, nagtatrabaho, yung mga student, ayan, for how many days? And then we have the Work Appreciation Program, the Workers Hiring for Infrastructure Projects or the WIP, and then other programs activities developed by DOLE to enhance provision of employment assistance to PESO clients. Okay? Then we have 10691, so amendment naman ito, sa PESO, the Public Employment Service Office. An act defining the role of the DOLE, LGU, accredited NGOs in establishment, operation of PESO, and operation of job placement offices in the EIPS or the educational institutions. So dito sa section 3 sinasabi, so yung establishment ng public or the PESO office, to carry out the above declared policy, there shall be established in all provinces, cities, and municipalities a PESO which shall be operated and maintained by the LGU. The PESO shall be linked to the regional office of the DOLE in coordination with the technical supervision and to the DOLE Central Office to constitute the National Public Employment Service Network. Okay. So the PESO shall be under the office of the governor, city or municipal mayor. The PESO shall be initially organized with a composed of PESO manager and may be assisted by labor and employment officer as may be determined by the LGU. Upon the request of accredited NGO or educational institutions, the DOLE may enter into a memorandum of agreement for the NGO and the educational institution to establish, operate, and maintain a PESO and a job placement office respectively. To harmonize the provision of employment services in a given territorial jurisdiction, the PESO at the NGO and the job placement office in PI shall coordinate their activities with the appropriate LGU PESO. Yan. So next, So okay na tayo with the laws for the labor, Ayan. Or laws for the poor. Next would be laws for the family. Ayan. So mga batas naman pumapatungkol sa pamilya. So medyo mahaba ito. So itong Family Code of the Philippines. So pasadahan lang din natin to give you some idea. Ano ba ang nilalamang ng Family Code of the Philippines? This was signed on July 6, 1987. And then effectivity date natin is August 3, 1988. And then took effect on August 4, 1988. Parang may naalala din akong tanong, hindi ko alam kung kasama sa board exam. So, kanino daw president na ipasa ang Family Code of the Philippines, So, 1987, ay si Pangulong Cory Aquino na, 1987 kasi. So, ayan. So, ang laman ng Family Code, so title number 1, so we have the marriage. So, under chapter 1, the requisites of marriage. So sabi daw dito, marriage is a special contract of permanent union between man and woman entered into in accordance with the law for the establishment of conjugal and family life. So Article 2, no marriage shall be valid unless the essential requisites are present. Legal capacity of the contract parties who must be a male and a female. Consent freely given in the presence of solemnizing officer. And the Article 3, the formal requisites of marriage are, number 1, authority of the solemnizing officer, a valid marriage license except in the cases provided in Chapter 2 of this title, and a marriage ceremony with the appearance of the contracting parties before solemnizing officer and their personal declaration as husband and wife in the presence of less than 2 witnesses of legal age. Article 4. The absence of any of the essential or formal requisites shall render the marriage valid ab initio. A defect in any of the essential requisites shall render marriage voidable. Irregularity in formal requisites shall not affect validity of marriage, but party or parties should be civilly or criminally and administratively liable. Article 6, Articulo Mortis, when the party at the point of death is unable to sign the marriage certificate, one of the witnesses to the marriage to write the name of said party, which fact shall be attested by the solemnizing officer. Okay? Article number 7, marriage may be solemnized by any member of judiciary with the court's decision. Okay, pwedeng mag-solemnize o mag-conduct ng kasal ay judiciary, church or religious sect. Or okay. So ganito so hindi na natin masyadong i-detail kasi medyo mahaba pa rin itong ating mga laws So siguro yung pinakang main thought na lang siguro ng batas, and then yung mga ilang important points na dapat nyo malaman siguro for your readings na lang. Po? So para hindi na rin tayo magtagal. Ayan. So kumbaga papasadahan na lang po natin yung mga batas, and then ano yung pinakang features ng batas na ito, yun na lang siguro yung babanggitin natin. Po? Sige. So balik tayo sa Family Code of the Philippines. So dito naman sa Family Code of the Philippines, ang inusap lang dito sa unang title is the marriage. Po? Title number 1 is marriage. Ayan. And then under that title number 1, so nandito rin yung about sa marriages exempted from license requirement. And then chapter 3, nandun yung void and voidable marriage. So paano ba natin masasabi na void ang isang kasal o voidable ang isang kasal? Ayan. Then yung title 1, so inusap doon yung marriage. So title number 2 ay yung pagdating naman sa legal separation. So paano daw ba natin masasabi na ang isang relationship o isang marriage ay legal separated? Okay. Then title number 5, binigyan namang diin dito, ano naman yung family. Ayan. Title number 6, we have paternity and filiation. Ayan. Title number 8, the support. Ayan. So, if in case nagkaroon ng mga legal separation, annulment, so paano daw ba yung support with the children and the spouse? And then, title number 9, the parental authority. Ayan. Yan. So, yun lang po naman yung nilalaman. So, for the details, so pwede po nating basahin yung mga detalye. So, doon naman sa legal separation, pagdating sa parental authority, so kapag ang mga bata ay below 7 years old, so ang custody pa rin ng bata ay nandun sa babae. So, yun lang naman yung mga important na sinasabi dito. Ayan. So, we have 8533. So this is an amendment pagdating dito sa Family Code. So an act amending title number 1, chapter 3, article 39 of EO 209, nullifying the prescriptive period for action or defenses grounded on the physiological incapacity. Yan. So nagkaroon ng amendment pagdating do sa marriage under chapter 3, void and voidable marriage, and article number 39, the action or defense for the declaration of absolute nullity of marriage shall not prescribe. 9255 naman, this is an act allowing illegitimate children to use the surname of their father, amending Article 176 of EO 209. Ayan. So medyo pag-usapan din natin to kasi parang medyo famous din tong lumalabas sa mga exams. So allowing illegitimate children to use the surname of their father. So illegitimate children shall use the surname and be under the parental authority of their mother and shall be entitled to support in conformity with this code. However, illegitimate children may use the surname of their father if their filiation has been expressly recognized by the father through record of birth appearing in the civil register, or when an admission in a public document or private handwritten instrument is made by the father, provided the father has the right to institute an action before the regular courts to prove non-filiation during his lifetime. The legitimate portion share of each legitimate child shall consist of 1/2 of the legitime of a legitimate child. Okay? The 9858 as amended, an act providing for the legitimation of children born to parents below marrying age. So, ito yung mga below marrying age, below 18. So children conceived and born outside wedlock of parents who at the time of the conception of the former were not disqualified by any impediment to marry each other, or were so disqualified only because either or both of them were below 18 years of age may be legitimated. Legitimation shall take place by subsequent valid marriage between parents. The annulment of voidable marriage shall not affect the legitimation. Okay, so 8369, ito naman po ay the Family Courts of 1997. So ito naman ay an act establishing family courts and granting the original jurisdiction over child and family cases, amending BP 129 known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980. So dito binanggit lang naman ano ba yung mga qualification ng isang family court judges. So yan. So this is for your readings na lang siguro. And then the family court shall be exclusive regional jurisdiction to hear and decide the following cases. So ang family courts, so ito yung mga dinidesisyonan nila na mga cases. Okay? So hindi natin na i-details, So for your readings na lang po ito. Ayan. So yung mga mahalaga na lang batas na common. So ito yung 8972, the Solo Parents Welfare Act of 2000, So ito yung nagbibigay ng providing benefits and privileges for solo parents and their children. And so dito dinefine yung solo parent, So mahalaga na tandaan din natin dito. Sino ba yung mako-consider natin na solo parent, So una, a woman who gives birth as a result of rape and other crimes against chastity, even without a final conviction of the offender. Parent left alone with responsibility of parenthood dahil namatay yung asawa, nakulong yung asawa for at least 1 year, yung mga merong physical and mental incapacity yung kanilang partner, so they are considered also as solo parent. Parent left alone with the ROP due to legal separation. So kung legally separated, annulled for at least 1 year. So ayan, annulment of marriage, kasali din. Kasali din po yung mga abandonment ng asawa, inabandon na. unmarried mother, father who has prepared to keep and rear their children instead of having other cares for give them up to a welfare institution. Yan. Any person solely provides parental care and support to child or children. So kasali dyan yung mga halimbawa, tiyo, tiya, kapatid na sila na yung nagpapalaki dun sa bata. So they are considered solo parent. Kung solo naman sila at wala silang katuwang sa buhay. Any family member who assumes the responsibility of head of the family as a result of death, abandonment, disappearance, or prolonged absence of the parents or solo parents. Ayan. So, dun sa amendment din, yung sa Expanded Solo Parent Act, Solo Parents Welfare Act, so hindi ako nagkakamali, yung 11861, so ito yung bago ngayon, na bago doon yung coverage, kasi dito sa definition ng 8972, 18 years old pababa dapat yung anak ng isang solo parent. So may tuturing natin na solo parent ang isang individual kung meron siyang anak na 18 years old pababa. Okay, so ngayon, tinaasan na ng edad. So 22 years old na. So as long as meron kang 22 years old pababa na anak, ikaw ay pwede pang pumasok doon sa pagiging solo parent. So bakit? So given na nagkaroon nga tayo ng K-12, diba? So mas humaba yung taon na kailangan mong sustentuhan sa pag-aaral yung iyong anak. Kaya dun sa Expanded Solo Parent Act, so ginawa na nilang hanggang 22 years old. Yeah, so yun yung bago pagdating sa Solo Parents Welfare Act. Okay. So yung mga assistants, isa-isayin lang din natin. So ang mahalaga dito yung pagkakaroon nila ng flexible work schedule, work discrimination. So meron silang additional na parental leave, na 7 working days. Ayan. And then priority rin sila sa mga educational benefits, mga scholarship programs, non-formal education programs para dun sa kanilang mga anak. Housing benefits, meron din. Medical assistance, and the additional powers and functions of the DSWD. So sila yung magko-conduct ng research. And then coordinate the activities of various governmental and non-governmental organizations engaged in promoting and protecting the interests of the solo parent and their children. So DSWD yung magmo-monitor ng implementation ng act na ito and suggest mechanism by which such provisions are effectively implemented. Okay? So that's for the Solo Parent Welfare Act. 10354, the Responsible Parenthood and Reproductive Health Act of 2012, or the RH Bill or the RH Law. Ayan. Okay. So this is for your readings na rin, So ang sinasabi lang naman dito sa Responsible Parent and Reproductive Health Act of 2012, so yung paggamit natin ng mga family planning, so yung magkaroon ng access yung every Pilipino, dun sa family planning, so yung mga mag-asawa na mga Pilipinos, Okay? So for women, so we have the UN CEDAW, United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. So the convention defines discrimination against women as any distinction, exclusion, or restriction made on the basis of sex, which has effect or purpose of impairing or nullifying the recognition, enjoyment, or exercise by women, irrespective of their marital status, on a basis of equality of men and women, of human rights and fundamental freedoms in the political, economic, social, cultural, civil, or any other field. Ayan. So, this is under United Nations, itong UN CEDAW. Sige. So RA 6725, an act strengthening the prohibition on discrimination against women with respect to terms and condition of employment. So ito, medyo tandaan nyo din to, 6725. So yung discrimination naman sa women pagdating sa mga sa employment. Ayan. So ito daw yung maituturing ng mga discrimination pagdating sa employment ng mga kababaihan, payment of a lesser compensation including wage, salary, or other forms of remuneration and fringe benefits to a female employee as against a male employee for work of equal value. Favoring a male employee over a female employee with respect to promotion, training opportunity, study and scholarship grants solely on accounts of their sexes. So there are also employer na ayaw tumanggap din ng mga kababaihan dahil sila yung sa tingin ng mga employer, lugi sila kasi ang mga kababaihan may mga maternity leave, so napakahaba ng leave, so they think na lugi sila kaya may prefer sila na mas okay kung lalaki na lang yung i-hire nila. Pero with this law, pinoprotect natin yung mga kababaihan na against sa discrimination pagdating sa employment. Ayan. So X6955, ito last year lang yata lumabas, 6955. The mail order bride. So dito naman, an act to declare unlawful the practice of matching Filipino women for marriage to foreign national. Yan. So ito naman yung pagbabawal na pagmamatch ng mga Filipino women na ipakasal sa mga foreign nationals on a mail order basis or other similar practices, including the advertisement, publication, printing or distribution of brochures, filters, and other propaganda materials. Ayan. So tingnan lang natin to. So for a person, natural or juridical association, club, or any identity to commit directly or indirectly any of the following acts. So number 1, to establish or carry on a business which has its purpose for matching Filipino women for marriage for foreign nationals, either on a mail order basis or through personal introduction. To advertise, publish, print, or distribute or cause the advertisement, publication, printing, or distribution of any brochure, flyer, or any propaganda material calculated to promote the prohibited acts in the preceding subparagraph. To solicit, enlist, or any manner attract or induce any Filipino woman to become a member in any club or association whose objective is to match women for marriage to foreign national, either on a mail order basis or through personal introduction for a fee. To use the postal service to promote the prohibited acts in subparagraph 1 hereof. Ayan. So the mail order bride o yung unlawful matching ng Filipino women sa mga foreign nationals. So that's 6955. So 7192, so we have Women Development and Nation Building Act. This is an act promoting the integration of women as full and equal partners of men in development and nation building. So with this, we are promoting yung gender equality, and more emphasizing pagdating sa mga kababaihan. 7877, so ito during our time, lumabas din po ito, the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995. So ang tatandaan nyo, kay Sexual Harassment Act, so there is always an authority. Nangyayari ang sexual harassment, it could be in school, in sa trabaho, so between a supervisor and supervisee, between a student and a teacher, so yun po yung anti-sexual harassment. Nandun lagi yung tinatawag na authority. So kumbaga, tinetake advantage ng isang tao yung kanyang position para makapag-take advantage doon sa taong gusto niyang gawa ng harassment. So iba pa yung tinatawag nating the Safe Spaces Act o Bawal Bastos Law. So ito naman ay RA 11313. Ano yung ating Safe Spaces Act. So sa Safe Spaces Act kasi, hindi napapasok dito yung usaping authority. So nasa kalye ka man o nasa public or private owned property ka, sinitsitan ka, binastos ka, papasok yan dito sa Safe Spaces Act. May sinipulan ka, binastos ka, hinupuan ka in a public spaces or private spaces, pasok yan sa Safe Spaces Act. So yun yung pagkakaiba ng dalawa, sa itong dalawang law na ito. Pag anti-sexual harassment 7877, pumapatungkol ito dun sa usaping authority. Nangyayari ang sexual harassment between pwede yan sa trabaho, pwede sa school, na kung saan nag-i-exist yung authority. It could be between the supervisor and the supervisee. It could be the teacher and the student. So sinasamantala nung nasa posisyon, yung kanyang posisyon para makapag-take advantage doon sa taong gusto niyang gawa ng harassment. Okay? So that's anti-sexual harassment. Yung Safe Spaces Act naman, bawal bastos law, nasaan ka man, private or public, binastos ka, sinisitan ka, sinipulan ka, hinipuan ka. So, papasok yan sa 11313 or the Safe Spaces. Okay? Next, we have 7882. An act providing assistance to women engaging in micro and cottage business enterprises. So, hindi ko na masyado din tong elaborate, ha? Hindi rin common naman ito. Ayan. And then the Beijing Plan of Action, the United Nations World Conference on Women. So, ito naman is a form of conference, So, 1995 Beijing Platform for Action flagged 12 key areas where urgent action was needed to ensure greater equality and opportunities for women, men, girls, and boys. So, yung 12 na binigyan nila ng pansin ay yung women and poverty, education and training of women. We have number 3, women and health, the violence against women or the VAWC, women and armed conflict, women and the economy, women in power and decision making, institutional mechanisms, human rights of women, women and the media, and women and the environment. And then the last is the girl child. And next, the anti-rape law, the 8353. So, the anti-rape law of 1997. So, the act expanding the definition of crime or rape, reclassifying the same as crime against person. Amending the Purpose Act number 3815 known as the Revised Penal Code. So, tingnan lang din natin, so paano ba natin may tuturing na yung nangyari ay isang rape? So this is committed by a man who should have a carnal knowledge of a woman under any of the following circumstances. So through force, threat, or intimidation. So pasok yan sa rape. When the offended party is deprived of reason or otherwise unconscious by means of fraudulent machination or grave abuse of authority. When the offended party is under 12 years of age or is demented, even though none of the circumstances mentioned above be present. So ito yung tinatawag nating statutory rape. So nagte-take advantage on the age of the child. So that's statutory rape. By any person who under any of the circumstances mentioned in paragraph 1 shall commit an act of sexual assault by inserting his penis into another person's mouth or anal orifice. So yan yung mga important terms, or any instrument, so hindi lang penis, it could be any instrument or object into the genital or anal orifice of another person. Okay? 8505, the Rape Victim Assistance and Protection Act of 1998. So an act providing assistance and protection for rape victims, establishing the purpose of rape crisis center in every province and city. Ayan. So dito, inaatasan na magkaroon ng mga rape crisis center. So the DSWD, DOH, DILG, DOJ, and the NGO, sila yung responsible para magkaroon ng mga rape crisis center. Ano ba yung mga pinoprovide ng rape crisis center? So, providing rape victims with psychological counseling, medical and health services, including their medico-legal examination. And then next is yung mga legal assistance, pagdating sa mga rape victims. So, pagdating sa investigation, and then ensuring the safety and privacy ng rape victims, and providing psychological counseling and medical services when necessary for the family of rape victims. Developing and undertaking a training program for law enforcement officers, public prosecutors, lawyers, medical legal officers, social workers, and barangay officials on human rights and responsibilities, gender sensitivity and legal management rape cases, and adapting and implementing programs for the recovery of rape victims. Okay? So, VAWC, so 9262. So, ang tatandaan lang natin sa 9262, is there any relationship, papasok sa batas na ito kung nag-e-exist ang relasyon. Okay? Magiyang present man o past relationship. Okay? So, halimbawa, si ex, mag-ex-boyfriend kayo at mag-ex-girlfriend, sinaktan ka ng ex-boyfriend mo, pasok yan sa VAWC. O kaya naman, mag-asawa kayo, pasok pa rin yan sa VAWC. Sinaktan ka ng asawa mo, pasok pa rin yan sa VAWC. Okay? So as long as there is a relationship, past man yan or present, papasok yan sa VAWC. O kung halimbawa naman, parehas kayong babae, sinaktan ka noong jowa mong babae, pareha kayong mag-jowang babae. So pasok pa rin yun sa VAWC kasi there is a relationship kahit ang nanakit sa'yo ay kapwa mo babae. As long as may relationship, pasok siya sa VAWC. Kung ang halimbawa naman, magkapit-bahay lang kayo nung lalaki, ikaw ay babae. Sinampal ka nung lalaking kapitbahay mo. So, hindi sa pasok sa VAWC. Kasi wala naman kayong relasyon. Okay? So, papasok yun sa ibang batas. It could be physical injury. Okay? So, yun yung tatandaan nyo kay VAWC, ha? So, is there any existing relationship? It could be present or past. Okay? So, pakibasa na lang nito, yung mga definitions po natin. So, under VAWC, nandyan yung physical, sexual, psychological, kasama din yung economic kung hindi nagbibigay ng mga sustento, yung lalaki dun sa kanyang anak o asawa. Ayan. Ayan, kaya dito, mapapansin nyo, ayan, may mga dating relationship, sexual relations, kasi nga, pinag-uusapan natin dito ay kung merong relasyon sa isa't isa, yung nanakit at yung sinaktan. And then, important terms pa rin yung battered woman syndrome. Ayan, so, stalking, form din po siya ng ng violence against women, yung pag-stalk doon sa isang babae o sa isang woman. Ayan. Sige. So, for your readings na po yung iba. Okay, sige. Anti-trafficking in Persons Act of 2003, the 9208. So this is an act to institute policies to eliminate trafficking in persons, especially women and children, establishing the necessary institutional mechanism for the protection and support of the trafficked person. Ayan. So ito yung mga papasok dito sa mga trafficking, yung mga illegal recruitment, yung pagbebenta rin ng mga laman loob, kasama din po dyan. Ayan. Prostitution, sex tourism, sex exploitation, ayan, yung mga pornography, and etc. Ayan. So yung illegal na pagpapalabas ng individual sa labas ng bansa para pagtrabahuhin, kasama din po yan. And then, kasama din sa trafficking person, di ba nabanggit natin kanina yung 6955, any Filipino woman to a foreign national, yung ating illegal matching ng Filipino woman on the foreign national. Ayan, so kasama na dyan yung mga prostitution, pornography, sexual exploitation, and etc. Okay. Sige. Okay. So yan po, so 9710, yung Magna Carta of Women. Ayan, so ilagdag ko na lang din, dito sa, bago natin, yung Magna Carta of Women. So, meron din bunubuong mga council, council ang mga local government, kung familiar kayong LCAT VAWC, yung Local Committees on Anti-trafficking and VAWC. So, ito yung established na structure and system at the local level para mag-oversee ng implementation ng 9262 and the 9208, yung VAWC and Anti-trafficking in Persons Act. So sila yung nagbibigay ng protection, prevention, recovery, and integration sa mga nagiging biktima ng anti-trafficking, ng trafficking and violence against men. So kung sa local merong LCAT VAWC, so sa regional meron ding RCAT VAWC naman. Ay RCAT VAWC. And usually under regional or the RCAT VAWC, sila ay chaired by the DSWD. At ang co-chair ay ang DOJ at DILG. Okay? So yun yung mga important natin dapat malaman with this trafficking and violence against women act. Okay. Magna Carta of Women. So dito naman sa Magna Carta of Women, so tinitingnan naman natin dito yung role of women in nation building and ensures the substantive equality of women and men. So dito naman yung mga rights of the woman, ang binibigyang pansin dito sa Magna Carta of Women. Okay. Sige, so for your readings na po yung iba dito, ha? Ayan. Ayan, so ito na lang bibigyan ko in the end. So under this law, so this accelerate the participation and equitable representation of women in all spheres of society, particularly in the decision-making and the policy-making processes. So yung empowerment within the civil service, ayan. So dito sa law na ito, nakapaloob din yung development council and planning bodies, other policy and decision-making bodies, international bodies, integration of women in political parties, private sector, equal treatment before the law. So dapat daw ganon pag sa mga kababaihan. Equal access and elimination of discrimination in education, scholarship, and training. Develop, establish, strengthen programs for the participation of women and children in competitive and non-competitive sports, women in the military, so non-discriminatory and non-degradatory portrayal of women in media and film, and women's right to health. Kasama din po pala dyan yung number 1 to 6, ano? So ensure that all women should be protected from all forms of violence. Incremental increase in recruitment and training of women in the police, force, forensics, and medical legal services, social work services. Right to protection and security in situations of armed conflicts and militarization. All LGUs should establish a BAWDES in every barangay to ensure that violence against women cases are fully addressed in gender-responsive manner. So pagdating sa mga disaster situations, so kailangan din mabigyang tugon yung mga pangangailangan ng mga kababaihan. Okay? So more on dito sa Magna Carta of Women, so binibigyan din yung mga karapatan ng mga kababaihan. So yung involvement nila sa sports, sa military, sa education, and etc. Sa politics, and etc. Okay? Okay, sige. So next, we have the PD 603, the Child and Youth Welfare Code. So ito naman ina-apply natin sa mga persons below 21 years old except those emancipated in accordance with the law. So you are familiar naman with the rights of the child, So hindi na rin natin sa isa-isahin. So nakapaloob sa batas na ito yung responsibilities ng mga bata, and so dito nakalagay non-disclosure of birth records except for the person himself or any authorized by him, his spouse, his parents, his direct descendants or guardian or institution legally in charge of him, the court or proper public officials. So ito lang yung pwedeng magkaroon ng access pagdating sa birth certificate. See? So for your readings na rin lang din to. Ano po? Wait. So tingnan natin yung mga ilang. Ayan. So dito na lang sa mga ilang definition of terms. Child caring institution. So pag sinabi natin child caring institution, this provides 24-hour resident group care service. Primary purpose is education. Pag sinabi naman natin detention home, this is a 24-hour child caring institution providing short-term resident care for youthful offenders who are awaiting court disposition of their cases or transfer to other agencies or jurisdiction. Pag shelter naman, this is a care institution provides temporary protection and care to children requiring emergency reception as a result of fortuitous events, abandonment by parents, dangerous conditions of neglect or cruelty in the home, being without adult care because of crisis in the family, or a court order holding them as material witnesses. Receiving homes, family-type homes which provides temporary shelter from 10 to 20 days for children who shall, during this period, be under observation and study for eventual placement by the DSWD. Okay, we have nursery. So child care institution that provides care for 6 or more children 6 years of age for all part of 24 hours a day, except those duly licensed and offer medical and educational services. So dun tayo sa 8749, the Philippine Clean Air Act of 1999. So ayan. So this is an effective air quality management program that will mitigate the worsening problem of air pollution in the country. So, yun yung pinakang major ano lang naman ito, yung Philippine Clean Air Act, ano. So, para ma-resolution na natin yung worsening problem pagdating sa air pollution. Ecological solid waste management, an act providing for an ecological waste management program, creating the necessary institutional mechanism and incentives, declaring certain acts prohibited and providing penalties. And Climate Change Act of 2009 created the Climate Change Commission, which is the policy-making body, coordinate, monitor, and evaluate the government program and actions to mitigate and adapt the effects of climate change. 10121. Ayan. So ito yung Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act of 2010. So this is an act strengthening the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Framework and institutionalizing the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Plan. So ito yung long ito, ang nagsasabi na kailangan daw ay magkaroon ng mga Disaster Reduction Management Council and Management Plan, from the national down to the local and down to the barangay level. It upholds the constitutional rights to life and property by addressing the root cause of vulnerabilities to disasters and strengthening the country's capacity for disaster risk reduction and management. Okay, next. So, yung iba for readings ulit, So ito, basahin nyo lang yung disaster preparedness, disaster prevention, disaster response, disaster risk. So these are the important terms, under this Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act of 2010. Okay. So special concerns, laws for special sectors with special concerns, Migrant Workers and Overseas Filipinos Act of 1995. This is an act institute the policies of overseas employment and establish a high standard of protection and promotion of the welfare of migrant workers, their families, and overseas Filipinos in distress. So nakapokus yung batas na ito hindi lamang sa migrant workers as well as dun sa pamilya noong migrant workers or OFW. Okay. For your readings na rin po yung iba. So amendment ng Migrant Worker Act, yung 122. So further improving the standard and protection of promotion of the welfare of migrant workers, their families, and overseas Filipinos in distress. Okay, so for readings na rin po yung iba. So yung iba ay binigyan din ko yung mga common laws, pero yung itong mga hindi naman masyado ay for your readings na lang para mapamiliarize po kayo. And then 8504, the Philippine AIDS Prevention and Control Act of 1988. So ito naman nagbibigay ng protection sa mga rights ng mga individuals with HIV or AIDS, or people living with HIV. Ayan. So the correct term, ay PLHIV or people living with human immunodeficiency virus. Okay. So dito sa batas na ito, kailangan daw ng compulsory HIV testing shall be considered unlawful unless otherwise provided in this act. Ayan. So hindi compulsory, The right to privacy of individual HIV should be guaranteed. So iniiwasan din yung discrimination. Ayan. And provision of basic health and social services for individuals with HIV shall be assured. Okay. So sige. Ayun, yung pagdating sa results ng HIV, shall be confidential and shall be released only to the following persons. Ito lang yung pwede natin paglilisan. the person who submitted himself or herself, yung mismong sarili mo lang dapat, yung bibigyan ng resulta. Either parent of a minor child who has been tested. Kung minor yung children, pwede sa parent. A legal guardian in the case of insane person or orphans. A person authorized to receive such results in conjunction with the AIDS Watch program as provided in Section 27 of this Act. A Justice of Court of Appeals of the Order of Supreme Court as provided under subsection C of this Act and in accordance with the provision of Section 16 hereof. Okay. Ayan. Domestic Workers Act or the Batas Kasambahay. So, the Domestic Workers Act. Ano? So, ito yung para sa mga kasambahay law. Ano? Okay. So, tingnan lang natin yung mga dapat mandatory benefits nilang makuha. So, a minimum wage dapat ng 2,500 kung nasa Metro Manila ka. 2,000 naman kung nasa cities in municipalities and 1,500 for other municipalities. Pero sa panahon ngayon, kung ganito yung sahod ng mga kasambahay ay kapakaliit. Kasi ang mga kasambahay ngayon medyo mataas na rin po yung mga sahod nila. And then, daily rest period of 8 total hours. Weekly rest period of 24 uninterrupted hours. 5 days annual service incentive leave with pay. Dapat meron din silang 13-month and dapat meron din silang SSS Pag-ibig and PhilHealth. Ayan, so Dangerous Drugs Act of 1972 or the 6425. Parang mali po yun dito. 6425 nga ba? Or 6925. Wait lang pa. Okay, 6425 nga siya. Mali po ito nandito sa ayun. So amendment pala yung 9165. Sorry. Ayan. So tama po ito 6425. So that's 1972. Yung 2002 is 9165. Sige po. So this is for your readings na rin itong Dangerous Drug Act. Okay. So dito tayo sa amendment. Ito na yung 9165. So the Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of 2002. Ayan. Okay. For your readings na din po ito. And then 8049, the Anti-hazing Act. An act regulating hazing and other forms, initiation rights in fraternities, sororities, and other organizations. Ayan. So, Anti-hazing Act. Okay. Anti-trafficking in Persons Act of 2003. So, that's 9208. So, dito na natin pinasok kanina yung LCAT VAWC, RCAT VAWC. So ito yung implementing bodies na nag-i-implement ng 9262 and 9208. Okay, napasadahan na rin naman natin tong anti-trafficking. So ito yung amendment 10364, expanded anti-trafficking in persons of 2012. And so dito sa new law daw, the following acts are now considered human trafficking. Yung recruitment or domestic overseas employment for sexual exploitation, forced labor or involuntary debt bondage, pambayad utang, recruitment of Filipino women to marry a foreigner. So that's a form of trafficking pa rin. And then recruitment for sex tourism, recruitment for organ removal, recruitment of a child to engage in armed activities abroad. Okay. Okay. So we have the United Nations Convention on Transitional Organized Crimes. So this is a protocol against the smuggling of migrants by land, sea, and air. So this is a protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children. Okay, sige. So 9745, the Anti-Torture Act of 2009. So this is an act penalizing torture and other cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment of punishment. So freedom from torture and other cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment or punishment, an absolute right. So against naman on the Torture Act. Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012 or the Cybercrime Law, so 10175, an act defining cybercrime providing for the prevention, investigation, and suppression on and imposition of penalties. Okay. So ano ba yung mga cybercrime offenses? Illegal access, illegal interception, data interference, system interference, misuse of devices, cyber squatting. And then we have also computer-related offenses, yung mga computer-related fraud, computer-related identity theft. And then we have content-related offenses, cyber sex, child pornography, unsolicited commercial communications. And we have the libel. So other offenses, aiding or abetting in the commission of cybercrime. So para kang accessory. And then attempt in the commission of cybercrime. Okay. So for the service provision naman, we have the National Health Insurance Act of 1995. O yung atin sa Philippine Health Insurance or the PhilHealth Corporation. Ayan. 7875. So dito, sa act na ito, so provide all citizens of the Philippines with the mechanism of gain financial access to health services. So nagsasabi din na kailangan mag-create ng National Health Insurance Program to serve as means to help the people to pay for healthcare services, prioritize and accelerate the provision of health services to all Filipinos, especially the segment of population who cannot afford such services. Establish PhilHealth hereinafter referred as corporation that will administer the program as central and local levels. So nagkaroon ng amendments ito, 10606, the National Health Insurance Act of 2013. So it is hereby declared that the policy of the state to adopt an integrated and comprehensive approach to health development, which shall endeavor to make essential goods, health, and other social services available to all the people at affordable cost and to provide free medical care to paupers. Toward this end, the state shall provide comprehensive healthcare services to all Filipinos through a socialized health insurance program that will prioritize the healthcare needs of the underprivileged, sick, elderly, PWDs, women, and children, and provide free healthcare services to indigents. Then we have 9999, the Pre-Legal Assistance Act. So, ito naman yung nagbibigay ng mga libreng legal assistance for the poor. Ayan. So, tingnan lang natin yung requirements for availment. For purpose of availing of benefits, services as envisioned in this act, a lawyer or professional partnership shall secure a certification from PAO, DOJ, or accredited association of the Supreme Court indicating that the said legal services to be provided are within the services defined by the Supreme Court, and that the agency cannot provide the legal services to provided by the private counsel. Okay. So we have BP 220 or the standard housing. An act authorizing the Ministry of Human Settlements to establish and promulgate different levels of standards and technical requirements for economic and socialized housing project in urban and rural areas. So ito naman ay yung pagdating sa mga housing project, so it provides standard pagdating sa mga housing projects in the urban and rural areas. Okay? Urban Development and Housing Act of 1992, 7279. An act provide comprehensive and continuing urban development and housing program, establish the mechanism for its implementation. Okay. For your readings na lang po ito. And then Comprehensive and Integrated Shelter Financing Act of 1994, the 7835. So this is an act providing comprehensive and integrated shelter and urban development financing program by increasing and regularizing the yearly appropriation of the major components of the national program. Okay. So that's it. Ano po yung ating napakadaming laws. Ayan. So, if you have time, so pwede niyong basahin. So, binigyang diin ko na lang dito yung mga important laws and common use na law.